Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over that potential big winter storm for portions of the Ohio Valley and portions of the interior Northeast. We're going to be going over my official snowfall and rainfall forecast at the end of the video, so make sure you are staying tuned all the way until the end. We're also going to be taking a look at the European and the GFS model and see what both of them are showing for snowfall totals, and areas around Cleveland, Erie, Pennsylvania, and also Buffalo, New York could be dealing with up to 12 or more inches of snowfall out of this event. We also are going to be talking about those extreme winds for portions of the East Coast, because some of those areas could be seeing wind gusts closer to 65 miles per hour. So here is the current National Weather Service page and what they're showing. We have some dense fog advisories moving through portions of Tennessee, Kentucky, and parts of the Carolinas. We also see some winter weather advisories from that system that is actually going to become our big Ohio Valley winter storm over portions of New Mexico right now. We have red flag warnings and high wind warnings in effect for portions of Arizona, Nevada, and California. We have some freeze warnings for Central California, some frost advisories for California and Oregon, as well as some air quality alerts in that gray for Oregon and Washington, and we have dense fog advisories for Oregon, and finally we have some high wind warnings in effect for portions of Montana there. So that's it for the current watches and warnings. Let's get into this analysis of the storm. Now, here is the current GFS model and what it's showing. And off the screen right now, you can't see it on the screen right now, but we have a system actually out in New Mexico by this point, right around here. And we're going to see that kind of merge together, or try to merge together with this front. But because of this upper wave that's up in portions of southern Canada there, that's going to be dipping down into portions of Ontario and into Quebec. And that'll actually sweep up this storm into the Ohio Valley. And this front will actually move out to the east. So let's see how this plays out on the GFS model. The GFS model is a much warmer solution to than what the European and the Canadian model is showing. So let's see what these models are showing. Now, that would be right around now. As we continue through the day, today, this would be in Central Time right around midnight tonight, and we're looking at that rain setting up for the southern portions of the eastern United States. So for portions of the south central and the southeastern United States, we're looking at some frontal moisture moving through, and then as we continue forward, you start to see that system move through portions of northern Texas and Oklahoma. We still see that front moving through southern Texas and Louisiana, but those are going to kind of move out, and you're going to start to see this bigger system develop. You're going to see the system pull out from portions of Texas and Louisiana, and then kind of head straight north and eastward into portions of the Tennessee and Ohio River valleys. Now, as we continue this forward, here would be by Monday morning. This main winter storm will be happening from Monday morning to about Tuesday in the middle of the day. We see those isobars clumped very closely together. Those are those gray lines on the screen. So right here, these are isobars, and when they are clumped together, because we do have that 1037 high pressure system and a 1002 low pressure system, the atmosphere is trying to get to equilibrium, which is basically its way of kind of equalizing the atmosphere and getting it all to a stable amount and a stable pressure. But because of this intense pressure gradient that we have from one area to another within just about 1,000 miles of each other, the only way for the atmosphere to expend that energy is through the form of precipitation and winds. So it's going to do a combination of both, where it's going to drive up those winds, and it is going to be quite a windy pattern, especially as you get east of the Mississippi River. I think it'll be quite windy. Now we start to see our first signs of any snowfall over portions of Indiana and Michigan as we start to get to Monday morning, right around 6 a.m. Central Time, 7 a.m. Eastern Time. And as we continue this forward, the GFS model, the main difference is it pulls out that system faster. So the system is already basically in Canada as we get to Monday late at night. But on the back side of there, you're going to see some lingering, very light snow showers that over time will accumulate to quite a bit of snowfall. And as we continue forward, you start to see that system pulls out. This would be by Monday night, getting into Tuesday morning. And you are seeing some lake effect enhanced bands of snowfall. But that system moves up into Ontario and then kind of spins back around over portions right around Toronto, and it just spins around there for the next couple of days. This is Wednesday morning, and it's still spinning around there. So here's what the GFS model does. It shows a lot less snowfall actually for portions of Kentucky, Tennessee, Indiana, western Michigan, but it really is focused on and concentrates all that snowfall over southeastern Michigan, northern half of Ohio, western Pennsylvania, western most New York, and into parts of the Appalachians. So that's where it's concentrating that snowfall. This is the GFS model, the American model, and usually what I think of the models as is the Canadian model, which we're not going to actually show in today's video, but the Canadian model usually overdoes the snowfall, the GFS usually underdoes the snowfall, and the European model usually is kind of right in the middle, and it also usually gets to track much better than what the GFS and the Canadian model do. So I usually trust the GFS. I kind of average out the GFS and the Canadian model, kind of get a mixture of both of them, and then I just overlay that onto wherever the European tracks the storm through. So that's kind of the best way to interpret this model data. Now, here would be the European model. So let's take a zoomed out look at the US at first, and then we'll zoom into portions of the Ohio Valley. We see that front down in the Gulf states, and then we see that moisture out through New Mexico and Arizona. This would be right around now. So as we continue this forward, here's through Friday night or tonight, and then as we're getting into Saturday morning, it's still sitting there, and then you start to see that first frontal part, the first part of this frontal system, move out of portions of the extreme southeast, and now this area over the south central United States is starting to kind of develop a little bit more, and you're going to start to see that track north and eastward. So as we move this on, you start to see most of that moisture lift up into portions of the Mississippi River Valley, and it continues to head eastward and northward. Let's zoom in on the Ohio Valley by this point. We're dealing with some snowfall and mixing by this point. This would be by Monday morning, so right around 6 a.m. Central Time, 7 a.m. Eastern Time. Heavy snowfall for portions of Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, and then some mixing as you get further to the east. And as this low pressure moves forward, you're dealing with that warm air actually being pulled up on the eastern side. So you're actually dealing with quite warm air moving up on the eastern side. But then on the back side, your cold air is coming out of the north, and so that's going to lead to some very cold air, especially in the western side, and then that might even get onto the southwestern side of the storm, where portions, this will be where portions of the southeast would start to get into some of that snowfall that most likely wouldn't accumulate, but might get some flakes in there, and we'll talk about that more in my snowfall forecast at the end of the video. So moving forward, we start to see over portions of Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan. We're dealing with some of that snowfall still moving through. It's light rain as you get further to the east, but then as that system really wraps around, some of that lake effect enhanced moisture moves through portions of Ohio and Pennsylvania, and you're also seeing some elevation enhanced snowfall for portions of Tennessee and western North Carolina, where in those higher elevations you can actually pump out more snowfall than you can actually pump out higher snowfall rates than if you're in a lower lying area. So some of those areas might pump out a little bit more snowfall. We're dealing with general light snow showers by this point, and it just sticks there. So this will be by Tuesday morning. Here's by Tuesday early afternoon. Here's by Tuesday evening, and we're still dealing with this system cranking out a lot of lake effect for some of these areas and portions of the interior northeast, and it just stays there. This is through Wednesday, and I could play this all the way through Thursday, and it's still snowing in some of these regions until eventually a short wave kind of picks up this system and heads it out to the east over southern Canada. Now, as we continue forward here, this would be the European model's total snowfall from this event. So in the grays, that's under an inch to 2 inches, 2 to 6 inches in the blues, 6 to 12 inches in the purples, and then about 12 to 18 or 20 inches in those pinks. And we're seeing a couple of those pop up from basically the I-90 corridor from about Buffalo to Erie to Cleveland will be probably the worst travel conditions for those areas. That's probably going to be where you're going to deal with the worst travel conditions, and hopefully the local areas do take this seriously and actually treat the roadways before this storm, because I know a lot of TV meteorologists really haven't been talking about this too much. So we really hope that this does actually kind of make it onto the news and people actually do start to hear about this storm, because especially if you live over the northern Ohio Valley and near the Great Lakes, I think you might get a little bit more snowfall out of this, mainly because of that north wind that'll be funneling in more of that snowfall to those areas. So that's something that we have to keep our eye on. And also, look at this. We have that snowfall getting actually fairly far to the south for portions of this would be early December. So to get snow this far south is actually quite incredible, you could say. And this cold air will also be quite intense. So let's look at a couple other parameters. Here's that cold air mass for Wednesday, and then we'll look at Thursday. We see anywhere in those kind of those whites or those lighter blues, that's where in the mid 30s to around just around 30 degrees. And when you're in those reds, those lightest reds are in the upper 20s, and once you get into those medium and dark shades of reds, that's where you know you're in the lower 20s or even in the teens. And you see some of those 20s actually getting into the panhandle of Florida, into northern Louisiana, all the way down into southern and central parts of Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia. And this is going to be probably your first freeze of the season for some of these areas further to the south, and this will definitely be one of your coldest days. Even if you have seen a freeze already, this will probably be one of your coldest days, especially through portions of Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. Here's Thursday, and that cold air actually pushes a little bit further to the north, but still it's a fairly chilly day compared to what you are used to over those areas in the southeast. Now, here's those maximum wind gusts, and you can see the area I highlighted on the thumbnail with extreme winds actually pretty much fits this perfectly because that area in Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, northward up the East Coast is dealing with wind gusts in knots closer to 45 to 50 miles per hour to 50 knots, and in miles per hour that would be closer to 60 or 65 miles per hour. By the way, if you have a question, leave them down below. I answer all of your comments down below, and I'll give you a personal forecast for your area. If you just leave a general location, I'll leave you a comment back giving you your snowfall forecast, and if you ask for a wind gust forecast, I'll give you that as well. Now, here's your visibilities as well, because we could be dealing with potential close to blizzard conditions. Now, the criteria for a blizzard here is visibilities under a quarter of a mile because of snowfall. So you have to have snowfall either on the ground or falling for at least 3 hours and have sustained winds or frequent gusts to 35 miles per hour over that 3-hour time frame, and that's the criteria for a blizzard warning, and that's when an official blizzard would be called. And these are your visibilities in those darker grays. That's where you're under half a mile visibility, and we see that widespread over western Pennsylvania, Ohio, through Indiana, and getting down into parts of West Virginia and portions of the Mid-Atlantic. So that is definitely a concern. These visibilities are going to be quite low. This is just an arbitrary date. This would be Monday morning. I just randomly picked one out, but this is just an example of what your visibilities could be like during this storm. Now, let's start getting into my personal snowfall forecast for this event. This is going from the 30th, which would be Monday, all the way until the 3rd of December, and I believe that would be Thursday. So we're dealing with under an inch of snowfall anywhere in these lighter blue areas, and that's for parts of eastern Tennessee, western North Carolina, northward up the Ohio Valley, and then areas pretty much from the Appalachian Mountains and westward are going to be dealing with that under an inch of snowfall at least. Now, flakes are possible in that pink region that you can see for portions of the mid-south, so for portions of the interior southeast. This is where I'm looking at. Potentially you could see some snowflakes flying, but I don't think it'll accumulate to too much. And then that 1 to 3 inch area, that's for eastern Tennessee, western North Carolina, westernmost Virginia, as you're getting into Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, the southern half of Michigan, through West Virginia, western Pennsylvania, western upstate New York, and then some of the higher elevations in the interior northeast, looking at potentially 1 to 3 inches of snowfall. Now, here's that 3 to 6 inch area, and that includes portions of Indiana, Ohio, southern Michigan, and through portions of western New York, western Pennsylvania, much of West Virginia, and then into portions of the southern Appalachians. And those areas could be picking up as much as 6 inches of snowfall in some of these cases. Now, this would be your 6 to 12 inch area, and then I think mainly for the mountainous regions in Tennessee and western North Carolina, as well as another kind of very high elevation area in eastern West Virginia, where some of those elevations are closer to 6,000 feet. I think you guys could get closer to 6 to 12 inches, mainly in the mountains closer to 6, 7, or 8 inches. But as you get into that area over Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and western New York, I think you guys could definitely pump out closer to 8, 9, 10, and maybe even closer to 12 to 18 inches if you live within this darker purple area. Again, basically from Cleveland to just south and west of Buffalo there, where you could be looking at 12 to 18 inches of snowfall. So definitely, if you are traveling across that area, be careful. And if you're traveling within any of these areas, actually the most accidents happen when there's under 2 inches of snowfall on the ground, because mainly people don't take the storm as seriously and they drive a little bit faster, and that can actually cause more accidents. So definitely keep your distance between two cars so that you don't crash into them. Definitely make sure that you are kind of being a little bit safer on the roadways than you would typically. And usually those first snows of the season can actually be the worst, because a lot of people kind of forget how to drive in the snow. Once you get deeper into the winter, people kind of get used to it. But definitely keep your eye out on this storm. I'll be updating this once more on Saturday. The December forecast comes out on Sunday, and that winter forecast comes out on Monday. So make sure you are subscribed, make sure you have your notifications turned on, and make sure you leave a like on the video. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below and I'll answer all of them. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.